What's that?
You'll have to start over again.
Now you can.
Now you can say good morning.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to Parshas Bahaloscha, which you could find on page 774 in the art scroll. The Parsha itself begins with the lighting of the menorah. The end of last week's portion provided for us the list of goods donated by the leaders of the tribes in honor of the inauguration of the tabernacle. There's a midrash that notes that Aaron HaKohen felt left out from that event because we do not find him or his tribe providing gifts for the inauguration. And the Almighty says to him that you should know you have a mitzvah which is greater and it's going to be long-lasting. The lighting of the menorah. There are some rabbinic sources that actually find reference here to the Hanukkah miracle and the mitzvah that came about as a result of that miracle. The lighting of the menorah. The lighting of the menorah was considered the long-lasting one because everything else that is referred to when it comes to the Mishkan, the tabernacle, when it comes to the Beis HaMikdash, the temple in Jerusalem, anything mentioned regarding those structures only were in practice when those structures were there. When unfortunately the structures were destroyed, the mitzvot are no longer applicable.
My apologies.
It's okay, it's okay. Wow. Apologies for saying that. That's like an incredible thing to hear. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. It's good, it's good. So here we have, what do we have here? Not just a copy, we have a mitzvah that will be in practice, that will be in play, that will be so significant for our future, not just when there is a temple in Jerusalem, Beit HaMikdash, but rather even during the exile, we're going to have that mitzvah of Hanukkah. And what's quite fascinating, that is, if you want to know what is considered the symbol, the emblem of the people of Israel. So recently, over the past few centuries, you have the Magen David. But yes, Magen David became a symbol of the people of Israel, but the menorah without doubt predates that. The menorah itself symbolizes the people of Israel more than anything else. It is a symbol that blinks us back to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore Aaron HaKohen is being told, the gifts that you read earlier, the gifts that were presented during the inauguration were significant ones for the tabernacle, for the Mishkan. You want to know what will last for eternity? That is the menorah, and that's why this week's portion begins with the menorah and the mitzvah that relates to it. We're going to skip forward to page 782. The people of Israel were given lots of information about how they are going to travel in the wilderness. The formation, leaders of tribes, who begins the journey, who follows suit. The actual journey, if you think about it, that they reach Har Sinai, they surround themselves around that mountain, they encamp in the beginning of the month of Sivan in year 1. They leave Egypt in Nisan. They arrive at Mount Sinai in Sivan. So we're talking about the 3rd month after, which is basically a month and a half, some 45, 46 days after they leave Egypt. They settle around Har Sinai. Lots of information is provided to the people of Israel through Moshe. It was a very busy time because they construct the tabernacle, the Mishkan. And then on the 20th of Iyar, year 2, meaning almost a complete year after they arrive, they begin their journey towards what they believed the land of Israel, which took a little bit longer than they hoped. Vayiba Shana Hashenit, so we are told here on page 782, in verse 11 towards the end of the page, that it was in the second year, the second month, on the 20th of that month, Ne'aleha Anan, the cloud was lifted from the tabernacle, a sign of journey. And then finally, Vayisu B'nai Israel, they begin their journey and they reach towards Midbar, to the wilderness of Paran. And here we are told how the tribes journeyed, the formation. It was important. Now, towards the end of that page, if you look at the next paragraph, which is verse 21, so Moshe turns to his father-in-law and he invites him to join the nation. Okay. Vayomer Moshe, so we always call him Yitro, due to the fact that he gets the credit for adding a portion to the Torah. He was made the Torah yoter, more. He added to Torah. His recommendation of having a judicial system enhanced our Torah. And therefore he is called Mr. Yitro. He gave us yoter. He gave us more. But here he appears with a little bit of a different name. He is called Chovev. Same person according to our tradition, and same person if you look at the context here. And Chovev is Lashon, someone that is beloved, Chiba, meaning he became part of our people. And Moshe turns to Chovev and he says, listen, we are on our way to the land which God promised us, and I want you to join us, and I guarantee that we'll give you some of the good. And if you look carefully over the next few verses, the word tov, hetavnu, tov is going to appear again and again. So he tells his father-in-law, please join us. You were a significant part of who we are. We want you to play a role in the future as well. Come, verse 30, and he says, I am going home. I have a responsibility to my people. In other words, yes, I was elevated by the experience, but I have a responsibility towards people. I can have an effect on them. And I recognize my responsibility towards them as a spiritual guide. So I am planning to take your message and bring it out to the Midianites. That's what I want to do. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu in verse 31 says, you know what? You served like eyes to us. In other words, you could guide us in the future. You could go ahead and lead us spiritually. So you do for us. And Yitro says that is not the case. I have to go back to my people. And according to tradition, he goes back, but then he returns. And he is indeed given a portion in the land of Israel, in the area of Yericho. In the area of Yericho, he gets a portion. Okay, so we know that Yitro, Moshe is preparing for this journey / entry into the land of Israel. He wants his father-in-law, who is a great assistance, to join him. But now turn to verse 33. The actual journey is going to be described in verse 33. Vayisu, okay. Mehar Hashem, from the mountain of Hashem. Derech Shloshet Yamim. Now it doesn't say they journeyed for 3 days, but rather they journeyed a distance of 3 days. Distance was not measured by miles or kilometers. It was measured by time, okay? And often in Jewish tradition, time is measured by distance. In other words, you take the amount of time you are supposed to wait after sunset until you could go ahead and consider it Shabbat or after Shabbat. So it's measured by the amount of time it takes to walk, either 3/4 of a measurement called a meal. You're supposed to bake your matzah within 18 minutes. It doesn't mention in tradition 18 minutes. It says the amount of time it takes to walk a meal. A meal is about a kilometer, actually. So you have to know it's the amount of time. So they would measure distance with time, time with distance. They go hand in hand. And if you look carefully, it does not say that they traveled for 3 days, but rather they traveled a journey. A journey. They traveled in a distance of land that usually takes 3 days. So there could be two explanations. One explanation is that they made 3 days in 1 day. Good timing. You ever do that on a highway? That you have that feeling of good timing, that you made it from Buffalo in less than 2 hours, right? You have that good feeling, correct? If you don't get a ticket, it's a great feeling. So that's what they're saying here. They achieved it by traveling a distance of 3 days in less than that. But Shloshet Yamim is a key word. Shloshet Yamim in tradition is a key word. It represents some kind of gap, a spiritual gap. If you look back in Parshas B'Shalach, we are told that the nation of Israel traveled for 3 days and they were lacking water. What's the significance of water? Torah, spirituality. There was a void. And they are traveling a journey that creates some kind of void. There's going to be a void. And therefore, in our tradition, we are not supposed to have a 3-day period without the reading of the Torah. Therefore, we have a reading in the Monday mornings and Thursday mornings. No way can 3 days go by without us hearing those words of the Torah from the scroll itself. We are going to have a void. 3 days go by, you haven't done it, you are going to feel that something is lacking. And there's a code word here. If we see the Shloshet Yamim, we know here that some kind of void, something is going to take place here. If it is addressed appropriately, will be in good condition. If we go ahead and take care of that spiritual need, that urge to do good things, things are good. When people ignore an urge to accomplish in the spiritual realm, it brings about destruction. You sense a need to achieve in life, right? You have this need, I want to do good. So one way to deal with it is to do good, to do an act of kindness, call someone that needs a call, go to a class, study Tehillim, daven. There's so many good things to do to address that 3-day urge. But at times, what we do is we decide to distract ourselves from the need. And we decide, you know what, I don't feel comfortable with myself, so I'm going to go ahead and get involved in something that will distract me. I'll sit down and watch 12 hours straight of my of 24, of a TV program. Now that exactly is not going to cure you. You're not going to walk away with a feeling of fulfillment by watching 12 hours of TV or drinking something or eating. That's not going to give it to you. You have to do something spiritual to take care of it. And that's what we're addressing, and we're sensing here that when the Torah tells us that they traveled not for 3 days, but a path of 3 days. A path of 3 days means a path of the void. And how are we going to deal with it? Okay, we'll see soon. Now, the Holy Ark is in front of them, the Anan is in front of them, and they are beginning their journey. So we are all excited to read about the Jews in the wilderness, a very significant period of time in our history. It is the time when this book, which guides us for eternity, was given. So we're all excited about our ancestor in the wilderness, and from this point on, not right now, but give it 2 verses. 2 verses from now, the downfall of our people begins. And from this point on, everything will be negative. So we're going to very soon start the negative journey. And when you talk about the book of Bamidbar, you're going to think about kvetching and complaining, and you're going to talk about the spies who come back with negativity. You're going to talk about Korach who wants power. You're going to talk about a nation that complains about God. You're going to talk about a nation that sins. That's going to be what we're going to talk about. But beforehand, the Torah is going to introduce 2 verses that becomes very significant for us, and they are placed in a very interesting way, because if you look right before verse 35, you see the well-known upside down Nun, and then after verse 36, so we have 2 verses here, you see another upside down Nun. It gives you this appearance, it looks like some kind of parenthesis perhaps, meaning this is really separate from what is really part of the flow. Perhaps it was placed here for whatever reason. And then the rabbis tell us that these 2 verses are extremely significant. And I'll share with you what as soon as we read them. So here we go. the end of verse 34, Ve'anan Hashem alehem yomam, that the cloud of Hashem was over them by day, B'nasa min hamachaneh, when they journeyed from the camp. So our ancestors are traveling. Page 786. Verse 35, Vayehi binsoa ha'aron, and when the ark would journey, Vayomer Moshe would say, Kuma Hashem. We say that every Shabbat. Does God arise? Kuma? You know, we tell our kids to wake up, tell them the grandchildren, but what on earth are we doing with telling God to arise? We have to clarify that, especially if we're going to say it. We don't have 72 hours that go by without these words being uttered in a shul. Every 72 hours we say this. So I think it's important to know what it is about. And when God arises, vayafutsu oyevecha, the result is going to be that your foes are going to be scattered. Oyev, people that are your enemies, are going to be scattered. And then when you arise, in addition to that, veyanusu misanecha, that those that hate you, they will flee mipanecha, from before you. Okay? Nice verse. So significant that we got to sing this every Shabbat more than anything else. I don't know. Perhaps we could clarify that. Now, verse number 2 is Uvenucha Yomar, and when finally the holy ark rests, it reaches its destination. What is said? Shuva Hashem, return Hashem, right? Return or reside, perhaps. Rivevot Alfei Israel, among the myriads and thousands of Israel. No doubt is a significant text. This too is said every single time we return the Torah to the Holy Ark. So the first verse is said when we take it out, the second verse is said when we return it. It must be significant, but yet the words themselves don't talk to us. What's interesting is that in halachic literature, these two verses are ones that play a role in how we practice our Judaism. For example, there is a law that on the Shabbat, a person is not supposed to carry from a private domain to a courtyard that is owned by many, rabbinically we're talking about, unless they went ahead and they combined the courtyard. Meaning, for example, I live in an apartment building. I share the hallways of the apartment building with other people. The hallways of the apartment building are considered a semi-public domain. The public could use it. It is like a public domain. My house is a private domain. So the rabbis say that a person should not transfer from his apartment to the hallway unless you somehow combined all members of the apartment building. How do you combine all members of the apartment building? So one option is that every person in the apartment building gives a little piece of bread. They combine it in a basket and they put it in one of the apartments, and that combines everyone because Jews follow food. And therefore, if all the food is in one apartment, it is as if everyone is dwelling in that apartment. That's option number one. Option number two is that one person in the apartment building takes a box of matzah and he says that I am transferring authority of this box to all members of this apartment building. And that is the iruv, that is me'arev, it combines everyone together. And as a result, everyone could carry. Now, when a city does an eruv, like we have here in Toronto, it is called an eruv due to the fact that we are all combined. So first, to build an eruv, the first thing you need to do is enclose the city with either walls or by having two poles and a string attached on top. If that surrounds the city, that encloses the city. And that's step one of an eruv. Step number two is that either every person in the community gives a little bit of bread, or if that's a little bit difficult to collect from 250,000 people bread, what you do is you take 2 boxes of matzah, and if it has the volume of 18 dried figs, it's enough for all of the community for whatever reason. And what they do is, and in some shul here in Toronto, I'm not sure if it's in Shomer Shabbos or in Viewmont, in one of the shuls, sitting there are 2 boxes of matzah that belong to everyone of this community, and that combines us. That matzah, a little bit of it belongs to you, and that's how you could carry in Toronto through that a roof. Fine, a very important concept. Yes?
It doesn't matter if not everybody agrees to that? Or do they have to agree to it?
I mean, even someone who says, I don't want to rely on it, nevertheless, they transfer to you authority of a little bit of that matzah.
And what about people who say, I don't believe in it, I don't care about it?
You don't care. I hope they don't say they don't believe, because it's part of our tradition. And I sure hope they say they don't care, because it's a wonderful thing. If they want to say that we are strict due to some technicality, so they say that, but at least if they're knowledgeable, they know that even such a statement does not indicate that they don't believe in it, but rather they want to be more cautious. So that's what they do. The people that don't hold of it, if indeed they studied it, they still believe in it.
No, I'm talking about somebody who's not observant, who doesn't want to,
Okay, so someone that, I don't think they have a problem with owning a little bit of matzah. You could go ahead and, in Judaism, I could transfer authority of an item of value to someone, even if they don't know about it. And they might not, at this point, care so much about it, but nevertheless, they have ownership, and therefore they could carry in the city. Now, back to my courtyard. Imagine I'm in a courtyard in a city without an Erev, okay? And I have objects in my home. I am not supposed to rabbinically transfer them from my home to the courtyard. What happens if, God forbid, there is a fire? This is the Talmud discusses it. So the Talmud says that you could transfer, in such a case, items of sanctity, like scrolls, like a Sefer Torah. Even though rabbinically you do not transfer from a private to a semi-public domain, due to the significance of the scroll, it is permissible to transfer. Okay, now the Talmud asks the following question. What if you have an old scroll, and most of the letters have already fallen off? Which sometimes, what happens, it does happen. You keep a Sefer Torah in an environment with too much moisture, with time, it's a pity. You can buy something for $30,000. If it's not heated appropriately, if it's too moist in there goes your Sefer Torah. So the Talmud discusses a scroll that has many, many letters missing. So the Talmud asks, what is the minimum number of letters to still keep the text considered holy? Answer is 85. 85. Now, in Judaism, we know that numbers are significant. The 3, the 4, the 10s, the 13, the 12. Where on earth does 85 come from? So the Talmud responds that there are 2 significant verses in our text which are considered like a complete Torah. And those 2 verses have 85 letters. So due to the fact that those 2 verses are very significant, they are significant, and we can consider those 2 verses like a complete book of Torah. So due to the fact that we have a book of Torah that has 85 letters, that indicates that 85 letters are indeed significant. Where are those 2 verses? Vayhi bin Soharon vayomer Moshe, So suddenly, with this Talmudic statement, which has an impact on Jewish law, we are being told that these 2 verses are like a Sefer Torah. Extremely significant. And it's placed here smack in the middle of Bamidbar, to tell you that you should know the sections up until now are talking about us preparing for the journey. And from this point on, it is how everything starts to come, to collapse in essence. Okay, now, what exactly is the significance of these verses? Now, so again, the verses are significant. We say it every time we read the Torah. The verses are significant because it really is considered like a complete book. Why? So we're going to read on to see what the next portion is about. Vayehi ha'am. This is chapter 11. Okay, yes, we're filing for bankruptcy here in essence, if you think about it. But Vayi ha'am kemitonenim. The nation of Israel were like onenim. The rabbis have a dispute here. What does onen mean? It means either sadness, it means mourning, it means emptiness. We had this, a person lost a relative is in onen. The nation itself was acting like mourners. Something was lacking. They felt that something is lacking here. And as a result, when something's lacking in your life, and you don't fulfill, you don't give yourself what you need, the result is going to be, they are going to complain. People are going to fetch. You don't address what you need, right? Sometimes you have a child, a 3-year-old. The 3-year-old is kvetchy. A smart parent knows that all they need now is a sandwich. Sometimes when you feed them, and the child may not ask for it. The child may be driving you crazy, they want to watch Barney, but what they really, really need is something to eat. And so too, we work the same. That sometimes we feel kvetchy, we feel unhappy about ourselves, we don't feel we have purpose, we don't know that all we need is one act of kindness, one good phone call to a person, read a little bit of Tehillim, daven a little bit, so much to do, to go ahead and deal with it. The nation obviously was not doing it, so they're mitonenim ra be'oznei Hashem, they kvetch out and they are kvetching to Hashem, be'oznei Hashem. Now it's interesting when you say that they were complaining in the ears of God. When you say to someone that I told him in his ear, you know what that means? That I didn't want anyone else to hear. It was something that only God sensed. Perhaps it was subconsciously. Perhaps it was on a level that for everyone else it didn't seem like there was a problem, but God picked up that there's an issue here. Vayishma Hashem, and God heard. And there was anger, there was the wrath of the Creator. And the fire, there was a fire that burnt them. It consumed in the edge of the camp. Consumed something in the edge of the camp. Where what? Well, fire was the result. Maybe perhaps fire was lacking. There was an excitement that was lacking. Next, the nation continues in verse 3. In verse 4, we have in verse 4 that the asafsuf, the rabble, start complaining. And they, listen carefully, they develop a desire. Hitavu ta'ava. They wanted to cultivate a craving. Very odd way of stating a need. But here they go. You want to know how we kvetch? How do Jews complain? So what do they want? Who will feed us meat? They complain about the Kiddush, right? What do you mean? We want something good here. Food, we've been doing it for 3,000 years consistently. And what did we remember in verse 5? Zacharnu et hadaga. We remember the fish that we ate in Egypt that was free of charge, free herring in Egypt. Okay? And the kishuim, those Egyptian cucumbers. Do you remember the Egyptian cucumbers? The melons, the leeks, the onion, the garlic. I'm sure we're all drooling here from those Egyptian foods. And what are we eating now? What do we have now that's supposed to satisfy us? Nothing but the man. How depressing. Nothing but the man. Now the Torah tells us, you think man is so bad? Just for the record, in verse 7, you should know that the manna was kizeraga, was a coriander seed, had a magnificent color, like jewels, like a diamond. And it was very easy for the people to find it on a daily basis. It would descend with the dew, they would find it in the morning. Man was not so bad, but the nation nevertheless complained. Why did they complain about the man? And especially if you take the rabbinic traditions, that man had all kind of different flavors, it was unique. So commentators explain that man itself was a semi-spiritual food. Usually, the way it works is that we eat something that's physical, it sustains us. Here we were eating something in essence that was spiritual, and we were sustained by spirituality. So the concept of having a desire for it, an appetite for it, didn't really exist, because if it was fed to you on the spiritual side of things, and in the spiritual realm the concept of desire doesn't exist, so therefore you didn't really have an appetite for it. It was something that was given to you if you felt you were on the right spiritual level, if you felt a connection to the higher being, to the Almighty, and to tradition, to Torah, that gave you satisfaction. Right? We meet people that get their fix from foods, from drinks, from entertainment. And then there are people that get excitement from the intellect, from doing good deeds, from an act of kindness, from praying. The difference between the two is the fact that one of them is getting their food from the spiritual realm. Yes, they take care of their physical needs, but that is the byproduct and that's not the goal. That is a mean to go ahead and be a spiritual being. I eat to be able to be a healthy person, to do good deeds. That's the right thing. There are those, on the other hand, that their goal is to enjoy the world and only enjoy the world. That's what we are here for. So therefore, for the person whose whole mission is to enjoy the world to the fullest, to be in that state that you live off man, that your satisfaction comes about as a result of doing spiritual things, was not good. In other words, for example, have you ever been in New York to a fancy wedding? I've been to New York in a fancy wedding. And they have there a smorgasbord, right? And they have stations. Fish stations, meat stations, sushi stations, fruit stations. And you're overwhelmed sometimes by the amount of stations. So you go ahead and you fill a plate. And within 10 minutes, you go ahead and go to the fish station and you fill yourself up with all kind of good things, with the sushi, and they even have tuna steaks. And you put here and there some vegetables to feel you're eating also some vegetables. You even stop by the fruit to pick up the strawberries and the blueberries. You come to the table, you sit down, right? Now don't blink because the waiter will take your plate. But let's say you grab onto your plate and you're able to eat before the waiter comes, and you are full. Okay, you're full. So then on your way out, you realize that you missed one room. And there was another room where there was duck and lamb chops, right? You missed, so you filled yourself up with herring, sushi, and tuna when you could have been eating lamb chops with duck. And so you feel, you would wish to have just one more stomach, right? If I would just have another stomach, there's even a verse, Betin Rishayim Yatsar. In other words, if the goal is, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's gone through that experience, but if that is all we are about, to fulfill our pleasure, to have pleasure and to fulfill it. In other words, have a desire, fulfill it. Desire, fulfill it. Desire, fulfill it. If that's what we are about, man is not a good food to have as part of our diet. It's not going to work. So therefore, for them, and again, this is a nation that's slipping. They go through the 3-day path. There's an emptiness for Torah. They feel uncomfortable. They're on their way to Israel. They're on their way to spirituality. They're living off spiritual. They wanted something more physical. So here they go. They start hit'avu. They had a desire to have ta'ava. They wanted to have a physical appetite. They wanted something that's real, tangible. They slipped. The slipping of the nation of Israel begins. I want to take care of myself more, right? Kina, ta'ava, kavod. The rabbis warn us that if we have desire, if what guides us, and if what drives us is desire, if what drives us is honor, if what drives us is jealousy, we're going to destroy ourselves and we're going to destroy the world. We're human, by the way. We're allowed to enjoy things. We're supposed to enjoy things. We're supposed to go out and pick up a good product and say, thank you, God, for creating it. But there's a difference if we view it as our goal or as a mean for spiritual growth. If it becomes my whole essence, I have a problem. And that was the slip of the nation of Israel. So that's what's taking place right here. And what we have to realize is that the story of our people could have been a nation traveling in the wilderness, remaining on the right spiritual level, meriting to enter the land of Israel with Moshe, and being a light upon the nations, elevating humanity, fixing the world in essence, a real tikkun olam. That was supposed to be what our journey was about. It was supposed to be that right after the chapter 11 would have begun, Vayilchu ha'am, and they thanked God and they arrived to Israel. Everything was supposed to go right in the beginning of chapter 11. It didn't happen. Why? We slip and we give into desire. We give into jealousy. You're going to get Korah. You're going to go ahead and give into kavod, personal honor, all the flaws that destroy humanity are going to be found within us. And therefore we slip, and our entry into the land of Israel is incomplete. And by the way, we've been trying to clean up the mess for the past 3,000 years. That's what basically all we're doing. We are in exile to do good deeds, to inspire the world, to fix the flaws that you're going to read about in this book. This is the nation in the wilderness not fulfilling their mission. So it was supposed to be that when the Aaron would travel in the wilderness, it would break apart our desires. It would break apart our negative traits. It was supposed to be that what's in here inspires us to be connected to the spiritual realm, do good, be happy, be satisfied, appreciate God, appreciate the world, appreciate one another. And that is done by breaking our evil inclination, breaking it to pieces. That some people, the evil inclination already is manifested by actions. Those actions would break apart. For some people, those actions would have been would not come to fruition. They would have been only in the heart. They would have vanished. And therefore, turn back to Vahi bin Sa'aron. And we're going to read it in the ideal way. Vahi bin Sa'aron Vayomer Moshe, when the Holy Ark traveled, and Moshe says the following: Kuma Hashem. Kuma Hashem does not mean that he should arise. It means he should reveal himself. If you look at the Unklus, the earliest translation and rabbinic commentary is Vayomer Moshe idgali lehidgalot. Reveal yourself. How does God reveal himself? Through the people of Israel doing what is right. If we go in the wilderness and do what is right, feel satisfaction with what we are achieving. A 3-day period goes by, we feel emptiness, get involved in things that are spiritual. If we would have done that, v'yafutsu oivecha, the foes would have been scattered. It doesn't just mean people with guns. It means that the tendencies that humans have, those negative traits, would have vanished. Torah breaks negative traits. If we have a Yetzer Hara, the only way to deal with it is with spirituality. We are human. We have negative traits. We get angry. We have jealousy within us. Yes, there are desires that sometimes manipulate and control us. When we have a commitment to the spiritual realm, we can break them. That is Vahi bin Sa'aron. Ve'yafutsu oivecha. So the difference between an oyev and a soneh. An oyev is someone that shows his hatred publicly. The soneh keeps it in his heart. So too with negative traits. There are people that you see that their actions symbolize that there's real negativity there. There are people that they have jealousy in their heart. All that would collapse, would evaporate, if indeed we would have lived with that journey. If Vahi bin Sa'aron, the journey would have been correct. And then we would have returned. We would have settled. We would have settled. And God would have said, return with the myriads and the thousands of Israel. We would have returned. It's interesting that if you take the word revava in Hebrew is a unit of 10,000. Revavot, so 2 units of 10,000, meaning in the plural, is 20,000. Alfei is again elef, but in the plural it is 2,000. So Rivevot Alfei Yisrael is 22,000. That was the number of the Levites, the people that were to guide us. If we would have remained a nation intact, we would have been guided by the 22,000 people. This would have been the right reading of the text. But unfortunately, once we have stumbled, our journey of the wilderness has expanded to a 3,000-year journey. And our 3,000-year journey is that we have to go into the land of Israel but get exiled to Babylonia. Return and be exiled by the Romans. And Jews are going to have to settle in Babylonia, and they're going to have to settle in Spain, and they're going to have to settle in Europe. And they're going to have to be expelled from England in 1290, and from France in 1306, and from Spain in 1492. And we're going to have to go through the history of the people of Israel in the Holocaust until we return home. So suddenly, this Vayehi bin Sa'aron, the journey of the people of Israel that we talk about, is not just this internal journey to break our negative traits, but it's the journey that we live, that if, hopefully, we pray that if our Torah lives with us, we could survive enemies, right? Real anti-Semitism that exists in the world. reason and real enemies that surround us in the Middle East. So now we could read Vayhi bin Sa'aron as the journey, as the ark travels. It doesn't just refer in the wilderness. We are a traveling ark. We are a traveling ark now, and the ark stopped for us in Canada, for many people in the United States, for some people in Europe or in South America. Their ark is traveling. That's what we are about. When we are studying these words, and when we have shuls, and institutions that value Torah, when they are in existence, the ark is traveling. And we pray to God, do me a favor, Almighty. As we travel throughout the world, there are going to be people that are going to hate us. There are going to be anti-Semites everywhere. And please God, keep us alive. That those that have gathered together to attack us, they should be scattered. And those that hate us should go ahead and retract. And what are we hoping for? We're hoping in our prayer, and the return of the ark, the return of the Torah to the ark, symbolizes our future return to the land of Israel. And by the way, we're not going to return alone. We are supposed to inspire among the nations of the world. There are souls there that are waiting for our inspiration. There are people who converted to Judaism, and we're supposed to bring them in because that's our mission, to inspire humanity, that we are righteous, that we are good. And therefore, explains Rav Hirsch that when the verse says, verse 36 on page 786, Uvenucho yomar, and when it rests, what will be said? Shuva Hashem, return, like tshuva. Eventually the Messianic era is going to be an era of tshuva. And the tshuva will be such that there are going to be revavot, there are going to be meravs, there are going to be tens of thousands that are going to join the values of Judaism, the traditions of Judaism in many cases, with the Alfei Israel. Thousands of Jews, if they act appropriately and they take Torah with them, they can actually bring with them people who value and understand our role, and in many cases join us as well. And that is going to be the Messianic return, people joining us, people being inspired by us. Because when we travel with Torah, when Jews in the exile value Torah, we inspire people. When Jews in the exile don't value our tradition, and we think that we will be accepted when we act like everyone else, we fail, we stumble. The only way for us to have a future is with a commitment to Torah. And the result is going to be in verse 36. Yes, we will have a tshuva, a return to the land of Israel, not just with ourselves, but the many we have inspired because we took the Torah with us. These are two verses that are significant because it's the history of the people of Israel. It was supposed to be a short-term history, only significant for the journey in the wilderness, but we messed things up, and it's cleanup time. It took a very short period of time to make the mess, but as you know, if you have children or grandchildren, that sometimes it takes much, much longer to clean up the mess when there are things I hate, like board games that have 75 pieces, and a child can pull 5 of them out of the closet within 20 seconds and mix the 75 pieces of 5 games all together. And I, for whatever ridiculous reason, have the responsibility of returning each one where they belong. The mess can take less than 30 seconds. The cleanup can take 2 hours. That's what we are about. We read about the mess, and the mess was the byproduct of negative traits. And that's why Judaism always talks about that if we want to make the world a better place, we have to start with making ourselves better. We have negative traits. We are human. We have to overcome them. We have jealousy. Overcome it. We have hatred. Overcome it. Yes, there are times that ta'ava, that we have desires and urges that are very strong. Overcome them. If we learn to overcome them, and world leaders learn to overcome them, then we will indeed have a better world. So we have to take these values and live with them. And these 2 verses tell us of the long journey we have until we eventually achieve our mission of indeed entering the land of Israel, inspiring humanity, and living by the book that in essence is there for humanity. Thank you. Shkoach, thank you. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Torah houses get